All right. We're doing funk.
Well, let's welcome Peter Keys to the podcast. Thanks for coming, man. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. Hey, everybody. Yeah. Grateful to be here. Grateful to be anywhere.
So yeah, man. We officially first meet today.
Yeah.
But you and I connected 2020, and it's a song that you recorded, "Wicked Girl."
Oh yeah, Wicked Girl.
And so you played keys on that, and then ever since then, I've met tons of people like, "Oh man, Peter Keys." So it's awesome to finally meet you, man. So thanks for coming. So yeah, man. Well, I know we were chatting before this, but when we start these things, we just kind of wanted, you know, it's obviously the focus is music, and it's also about business, and we'll talk about the studio and all that. But you know, how did you get into music starting out? I'm sure it's a whole story.
Oh man, how did I get into music? You know, both of my parents played. Their brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles, had a band in the basement at Grandma's house.
Wow.
And I remember walking down there. I was about 3 or 4, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And everybody was in there like smoking and doing weird stuff. And they had like a collage of a yellow submarine painted, like the Peter Max painting on the wall. So it was all super surreal. And they were playing like really cool, you know, old funky rock and roll songs. And you know, we had a piano at the house. My mom would play classical. My dad would play classical. They'd play duets. And when I'd crawl under the baby grand and like fall asleep. So when I was old enough to like reach the keys, I was like, ka-ding! I'm like, oh, that's cool. And it just like, my first, I don't ever remember not playing, you know?
Sure.
So I just remember like hitting those keys, and it made that sound, and that sound made me feel something. And it was just something that I had control over, right? So when I could actually reach the keys, and I sat down and, you know, I played, I went, doon, 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 doon. I'm like, I wrote that. I just wrote rock and roll, you know? But I started taking classical lessons when I was 4.
Cool.
And, you know, just kind of fast forward 150 years, and here we are.
Well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned classical.
Yeah.
When did you know that you liked improv more than classical? Or do you like both? I don't know.
Well, the beautiful thing about classical music is it teaches you technique, right, where you can take everywhere, right?
Sure.
So if you have your proper hand positioning and your finger positioning, and you know all your scales and all your arpeggios and stuff, you can kind of do any kind of music. So it was, you know, I wasn't like a huge fan of it because it wasn't cool, you know. I started getting into like rock and roll and you know, alternative type stuff when I was about 12 or 13, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
And where was that?
That was out in West Marin, Point Reyes, Northern California.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then earlier we were talking, when did you decide to jump ship and leave the West Coast?
After I'd, you know, felt like I'd pretty much played out the scene there. It was, you know, it's such a beautiful place. Everybody was pretty comfortable and, dare I say, complacent. So a lot of the people that I was playing with, I was like, come on, guys, we got to go, like, conquer the world. And they're like, we're good here. I'm like, I'm out. You know.
Great.
Yeah.
And that was Atlanta? It was Detroit?
Oh, no, that was San Francisco Bay Area.
No, but I mean, you left San Francisco, went to Detroit or Atlanta?
I went to Atlanta, yeah.
Atlanta?
Yeah.
And how long were you there? Were you playing music there? How old were you?
Yeah, I left, let's see. Well, actually what happened was I moved to California when I was like 12 because my parents divorced, and hung out there and started playing and played in a couple little, you know, I started my first band.
Nice.
Started my second band, got thrown out of my third band that I started, which was really weird, hence the, you know, exodus. I split San Francisco Bay Area in 96.
Okay.
And basically what had happened was SFX, which used to be Bill Graham, which is now Clear Channel,
Yeah.
bought pretty much all of the venues around town.
The radio stations did?
Well, it was a production company or a promotion company. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like Bill Graham Productions was, you know, Bill Graham was the guy. He created the Grateful Dead, had a huge hand in building Skynyrd to where they were.
Wow.
Like he was the biggest promoter on the West Coast and the East Coast. So anyways,
So
once he
that's
passed, Clear Channel bought his company.
Got it.
Right. And
Wow.
so they bought up all the venues, and also the .com thing had just moved into San Francisco, and they'd bought all the warehouses. So within about a year and a half, we'd lost all of our rehearsal spaces, and all of our venues turned into national act-only venues. So the music scene was crumbling.
That's like
Reminds me of another city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on right
Talk
here?
about,
right
talk
now.
about Nashville, yeah.
Right.
Sounds like a Live Nation
Yeah.
move.
Well, that turned into Live Nation.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're saying when the .com like extravaganza started, they came in.
Yeah, they came in and bought up all the cheap real estate, which is where we were rehearsing.
Wow. You know, it happens to every like metro area that's like cool. Like Austin,
East
Texas.
Nashville, come on.
Yeah,
I mean, we're sitting in a house that I couldn't possibly afford now. that maybe cost $40,000 15 years ago.
Totally. When I first met my buddy Ryan here, 2015, just graduated college. I want to make it. I had a big management deal, which I didn't take, which actually I think was the best thing I did. But what I'm saying is I was really broke and I was living here.
And it was possible.
Yeah. And you had the house in 12 South and now the house is worth,
we
like
knocked it down. And
Well, when I moved here, I moved right behind Bongo Java in 5 Points.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I rented this little top of a house for $500 a month, and it was great.
What?
But then, I expanded. My kids moved in with me, so I moved down to Little Hollywood, which is kind of around the corner, behind Ugly Mugs. I'm always near coffee shops. It's weird. I don't know. but that was awesome, and I wanted to buy that house. But that's when the thing started going through the roof, and they're like, "Now we can't sell it. We'll get killed with capital gains."
Yeah.
So then I moved out to Hermitage, where I was able to actually buy a cool house.
And that's where you still are?
it's a great area.
Yeah. Well, actually, then I moved out of that house to Mount Juliet, which is now where I'm at because I have some land and I built the studio. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's insane. Nashville 10 years ago was like a sleepy town.
Right.
And now it's like Vegas.
Oh, it's.
I always say for people on the East Coast who don't, people who kind of like hate California, like I don't want to go out to the West Coast, but they'll come here.
Yeah.
And it's party central, man.
Oh, it's insane. It's out of control. I won't go downtown.
Yeah.
No. I unfortunately live down. My lease ends in February, and I'm out. Thank God. But I mean, do you like living here?
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the only. I mean, I've been to a lot of different cities for music, and this is the only city that I've ever been in where I can be on my way to the grocery store and get a call. Hey, man, can you come do a session? Yeah, I'll be right there, and I'll go do a session on my way to get milk.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. Well, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
Well, so when you landed here in 2008, right?
Yeah.
And it was Detroit before that.
Mm-hmm.
So who are you playing with? Like, what led you? I'm going to finally hang my hat here in Music City.
I'll give you the quick recap. So I left San Francisco, went to Atlanta to go do a couple sessions with a friend.
Sure.
I was supposed to be there for like 2 weeks. I stayed for 3 years because I hooked up with this little band you might have heard of called Parliament Funkadelic.
Nice.
And I toured with the original P, which was the original Parliament minus George Clinton. Mm-hmm. And we did a bunch of gigs there. That was super fun. Toured the world with that. Then I met my wife. I crashed my brother's wedding and grabbed the maid of honor, and she lived in Detroit. So I was like, hey, let's go to Detroit. So I moved up to Detroit because the Funkadelic wasn't really going on at that point. Went up to Detroit and hooked up with a group out of Nashville called the Music Mafia.
Okay.
And that was like in 2004. So I was doing some work with the Kid Rock camp up there and a bunch of different kind of funk and rock bands up in Detroit, getting my grease on. And it was, just getting that whole Motown feel.
Sure.
Like really soaked it in. Detroit's such a great city. And it, it's just, it's full of grit and dirt and grease and inspiration and people really,
just good art.
Yeah, good art, good music, great players. Just the winters are a little brutal.
Yeah.
So anyways, I hooked up with the Music Mafia. They were doing a show there. I got up on stage and played a song with them, and I was like, okay, thanks. And like, no, you stay. And we ended up playing until about 4 or 5 in the morning. I was like, this is great. They had like couches and somebody painting a picture and lamps and shit on stage, and it felt like a living room, just kind of hoedown.
That's awesome.
And they weren't just playing country. They were doing like soul and blues and rock and funk and like all of the stuff. And the artists were just great. So I started flying down to Nashville like every month and doing gigs with them and doing sessions. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I just need to move to Nashville. And so that was about 4 years later, I moved down here.
Awesome.
I think that's a cool observation that a lot of these Nashville guys, everyone just pictures them as like these country boys playing country music all the time.
Right.
But I'd say like of the top session players I've met, most of their influence comes from somewhere else.
Right.
I mean, if you look at like the pop country stuff, it's all of the pop punk guys from the 2000s.
Yeah, it's like all Warped Tour
Yeah.
behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I mean,
And I think that's the beauty of the city is that
yeah.
you get that.
Oh, that's the beauty of music, right? Like everything is derivative. Like there hasn't been an original piece of music out in, dare I say, 30 years, since they invented an amplifier, right? But it's cool that, we can take all of these different elements and these different influences and create a new piece, not that it's new, but, original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, well, actually, that's a good point. You're saying there's no original music in 30 years.
There's nothing new.
No.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Maybe
but,
like dubstep you could call new. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but
I mean,
I can see the creativity in it and that it's new tech.
sure.
But
it was 20
yeah, I guess that
years
was.
ago.
Yeah, I guess that was.
Yeah.
Guess that was.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but what about the whole idea of where everyone's getting snagged? Where it's like, hey, you took that idea from my song. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And what's the term you used before?
Plagiarism?
Well, there's that.
And then
yes.
there's the polite term interpolation.
Interpolation,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
where like
Right.
you re-record it, and it's like, well, it's not a sample,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
wild.
that's been going on for
ever.
forever.
I mean, look at Zeppelin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how many good ideas are there really?
Well, are
It's
you?
12 notes, right?
Yeah, one in blues, 145.
Right.
Maybe do like a 7 on the end of it or something.
I mean, it's for me. For me, it's all about the personality behind the song,
Sure.
right? Whether it's the artist or the producer or the guitarist or whatever. If there's something unique and unique to that individual, that is new. That is creative.
Well, I got a lot more questions for you, but the one that's obviously the big hot one is, so how did you step into Lynyrd Skynyrd? I mean, that's the, we'll talk about everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I moved down to Nashville after, having played all over the country, so I've got this cockroach on my arm, right? And I've got this theory, it's the Cockroach Theory. And there's basically 2 rules to the Cockroach Theory. Don't die, don't be a dick, and you'll be successful by default.
Sure.
So it's your basic last man standing principle. So
I've heard that from a lot of people. It's just stay around,
yeah,
right? Is that what you're kind of saying?
yeah.
I mean,
Don't die,
yeah.
don't be a dick.
And I think
right?
it's true in like every industry.
Exactly.
Even like Warren Buffett, he's like, don't try and be smart. Like, put your money in the market.
Right.
Let it sit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just continue doing
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
doing. So, all that to say this, I moved down to Nashville. I get a call. It's my friend Marlon from Kid Rock's band.
Sure.
Sideways back and forth. Like we'd been doing a bunch of work up in Detroit. I met him when he was opening a gig for Parliament Funkadelic. He was in another band. I was moving to Detroit. We connected. We did a bunch of projects together. While I was up in Detroit, this artist, Ty Stone, asked me if I'd put a band together for him to showcase for Kid Rock, for Bob.
Sure.
And he'd seen what I was doing with the Music Mafia, and I was trying to start the Motor City Mob, which was the Detroit chapter of that.
Sure.
Didn't really happen because everybody wanted to get paid and there was no money, Anyways, I put the band together. I called Marlon, got Marlon in the band. We went out and we opened for Bob a bunch of shows. And then Marlon got into Bob's band when that ended. And then they did Rock and Roll Jesus, and then they did All Summer Long with Lynyrd Skynyrd. So,
okay.
they Skynyrd and Bob toured together, and then Billy Powell passed away. So Ricky Medlock, the guitar player for Skynyrd, you guys know Ricky, asked Marlon, hey, do you know a keyboard player that can actually handle Billy's parts? And he said, yeah, I think Peter Keys is in Nashville, give him a call.
Sure.
So Marlon called me. He's like, hey, man, I need you to learn Sweet Home Alabama. Give me 3 steps. Call Me the Breeze and Freebird, note for note. I was like, cool. What, are we doing a Skynyrd gig? He's like, no, I got you an audition. I was like, what? I'm like, when's the audition? He's like, Saturday. I'm like, dude, it's Thursday night. Yeah. So I basically had two days to just.
Yeah, but I'm sure you already knew those songs a little bit at
Oh,
least.
not the way I needed to.
Yeah. Note for
Sure.
note.
Sure.
So basically, I shut everything down in my life, and I was like, okay, these 4 songs are all I'm going to do for the next, 48 hours.
Live and breathe them.
Yeah. And then I went in and did the audition, and I walked in and I was like, oh my God, there's Johnny Van Zant, there's Gary Rosington, there's Ricky Medlock, and
Where was the audition?
it was at Blackbird.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. But I sit down and it's like, here's the keyboard, and then they're all set up around me, like all looking at me, and somebody's got like a camera up my ass. I was like, oh, this is great. Like,
Oh my God.
don't fuck this up.
Got to handle the pressure, right?
Yeah, it was super pressure, but just because I really, really wanted the gig.
Yeah.
So
Do you feel like that came more about from being a fan, or the stability of it, or the music? Kind of a combination of both, like that you're wanting it so bad.
what came from that?
Like when you were the nervousness.
The nervousness?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just because, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? Like, it's the biggest Southern rock band in the world.
Yeah. 100%.
And I was like, okay, I really want this gig.
What year was that?
That was 2009.
And then would you say that kind of changed your life? Ultimately?
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, not just the band and the notoriety and, the whole machine and being involved with that band, but the work that I did to learn those parts completely transformed the way that I approach music, which was, I did not see that coming, right? It got me back to piano, right? Because I'd been playing like all of these synth parts and funk lines and clavinet and V3 and, doing all kinds of like crazy outside shit.
Sure.
And not that I'd stepped away from the piano, but piano wasn't my main focus. So when I got the call for the audition, I really just started digging in. I was like, oh, this is all about the piano. Like, this is all about boogie woogie.
It's not like crazy,
Oh, no, it is.
Okay.
It's absolutely crazy. Like the solos and the stuff that you think are the signature parts of Billy Powell's playing, it's just that's just a part of it. The comping that he did and the way that the piano interplays with three insane guitars, bass and drums, it really just like, oh, okay, so the voicings have to be a certain way in order to leave the space for the vocal and for the guitar and this and that and the bass. So it's like, it just made me rethink my entire background in how I play the piano, right? Because it's not like I'm an accompanist, right? I'm not playing myself and filling all of the space. I'm having to leave space and figure out where that is. And so Billy had just a really genius technique and way to work around all of that stuff that is integral to the Skynyrd sound.
Sure.
So that was just a super awesome bonus.
Well, so you've been touring with them, so that'd be what? That'd be 15 years?
16, coming
16
in
years?
17, yeah.
And so, you're also Peter Keys. And when we
Really?
Yeah. But when we met, you're like, hey man, I'm getting my own songs coming.
Yeah.
Like, are you still? I'm sure you're so damn busy with Lynyrd Skynyrd. Are you working on like, I got my own record, or because you have a studio now?
Yeah, I am, and actually that was part of the impetus to build the studio, is that I really want this record to sound right. And I've been doing all of my stuff in the, I've had a studio everywhere that I've lived, but it's always a basement, just making do and trying to, treat the walls. I got a low ceiling, and it's like I can get sounds out of there. But I wanted to create a space that I could be like, hey, let's have a drum kit set up, let's have a B3 and a piano, and then a big room and all of this stuff, and then let's have a control room with like a proper mix environment with the right speakers and the right shape and the right, geometry.
Sure.
So all that to say, yeah, I've got, I think 28 songs that are on deck right now.
Damn.
So I'm debating, do I just put out like a 30-song compilation? Because I did release the single right during COVID, I think.
Sure.
Like I was dropping a single a month. And I was like, okay, I see how that works. And
it's strategy.
Yeah, it's a strategy. And it didn't kind of get, well, I mean, I got what I got out of it, you know. But now I really want to release like a volume of work. So that's where I'm at.
It's a lost art these days of releasing the album.
Yeah.
I feel like by the time an album comes out, everyone's heard all the tracks.
Right.
And then like the curation of track listing is lost too.
Oh, yeah.
People listen to everything on shuffle.
Yeah.
Right.
I miss sitting down. I still do it when records come out. Like I'll put my headphones on, sit down, listen to the record.
I tell you what,
the Spotify
Totally.
record.
when I built the studio, before I put any gear in there, I brought my speakers in. I was like, I'm just going to listen to some of my favorite music.
Sure.
And it was amazing. Like I was like, oh my God, like the old Zeppelin records,
Kind of brought you back
Talking
a little bit.
Heads, Funkadelic, Skynyrd, like all of the stuff that I grew up on, I was now listening to in an environment where I was hearing new things on records that I've been listening to for 30 years.
Sure.
And that was just like, whoa, like mind blowing. And you know, it brought a lot of the joy back as a, you know, as a listener, you know.
Totally.
Because a lot of the times for me, listening to music is work. Like I won't listen to music because I have to dig into it and figure out, well, why'd they do that, or why would they do that, or how did they do that? And I, you know, the spectator is not there, right?
Sure.
It's very much just like, how do I break this down and how do we do this again? But sitting there and listening and just like really experiencing the music again was, you know, it was like a whole new experience.
Totally. I mean, like from your music career, I'm sure you felt, and I'm sure you have too. I have, where it's like, man, I kind of lost the love of it. You know, it's like, hey, what brought me here to
Of
music
the listening.
Yeah, of like,
well,
hey,
it's a job, right? It's turned into work.
Yep.
Like listening to music is work.
Yeah.
I have some friends that aren't musicians, but they're huge music fans, and I get so jealous of them.
Right.
Because they almost get to experience it in the
Different.
most raw, pure form of like, when I hear a song now, I'm like, oh, cool, it's a lot of high end. That's interesting
Right.
take. Or like, oh, cool modulation there.
They're not
Or-
thinking about how can I get my finger to
I'm
do
like,
that?
that's a strat. Like,
Yep.
you start breaking it down where it's like, I see my friend, he's like, this song's badass.
And you're like,
And I'm like, dude, I wish I had that.
You're like, and why? What makes it
yeah,
badass?
yeah. He's like, no, it just is. Like,
Yeah.
and I guess I'm sure you have your other outlets. Like you get that from other things in life, like watching a movie. I'm like, I don't care what camera they used. Like I just watch
Look,
them, you know.
when you get to be this old, you just get jaded
Yeah.
about everything, man. It's like everything sucks. Nobody's good enough. Come on.
everyone sucks. Fuck you. What? I mean, other than touring, I mean, for fun, because we're on that note, like, what are you trying to, you know, take care of yourself? Like maybe have a long walk in the morning or coffee or
I love mowing my lawn. I've got a dog that's completely out of control.
that's cool.
You
What kind
know,
of dog?
he's a puppy about this big.
Oh, that's cute.
He's half beagle and half Great Disappearanese. Look, boom, he's gone. I'm like, shit.
That's funny.
You know, but you know, it's. I mean, I love what I'm doing in the studio now. I was like, just yesterday, I was like, this is so fun.
Totally.
You know, just like making new sounds, like, you know, hooking up different pieces of gear, and it's like, oh wow, I've never heard that before. So that's.
What do you got going on there? You got a live room. You got
I've got I mean, I built a 1,700 square foot,
hell yeah.
you know, building.
That's awesome.
So I've got a live room, a control room, an ISO booth, you know, a little lounge area, and it's, you know,
That's awesome.
I think I've got like 36 keyboards in there. Like,
Of course.
How many of them do you keep like patched up, mic'd up?
I'm trying to get all of them.
All of them.
You know, right now, but right now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are not.
Yeah. Ooh.
Right, so there's 30 that are patched and
That's-
ready to go.
Dope.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the way to do it. Like I feel like if you have to take the time to set something up, the idea's gone.
right.
Oh yeah.
You want to be able
Well,
to put your hands
So, but
on
hey,
it.
go hop on that real quick.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that I mean, today what I did was I moved my drum kit to a different spot in the room and then mic'd that all up. You know, yesterday I mic'd up. I've got a Yamaha C7, which I just got and I love it. But I've also got the Steinway that I grew up on that I
Oh,
used
you
to
have
sleep under. It's a 1923 Steinway
That's
M.
awesome.
That's
It's
killer.
absolutely amazing. I've got that set up, you know, with a different miking configuration. But yet, like yesterday, I was in the ISO room setting up my suitcase Rhodes, you know, with the 4 speakers, and then I use a Motion Sound Leslie top, and then I figured out a way to patch that into the Rhodes as a effects loop with a RE20
Cool. So you can
Space
just blend
Echo,
it in.
and then an old ARP Pro Soloist on top, right? That's going through the,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just this sound
That's
that,
insane.
yeah, it is absolute. I just played it for like a couple hours, like, yeah, this is fucking great. I should probably hit record.
Shit.
yeah.
That's awesome.
But that's what I do for fun now. You know, it's like now I just
that's cool.
experiment with new sounds. When I find a new sound, it almost always writes a song. You know, because that's where I get my inspiration, is from what I'm hearing. It's just like when I was that kid on the piano. I'm like, boom, oh, that feels some kind of way.
Totally.
What do I do with it?
It's sorry to interrupt
Go
you.
ahead, go
It's really true though that the live performing and the studio are just like two different animals.
Totally.
It's I mean that's why you see a lot of studio guys stay as studio guys and touring guys stay as touring guys. It's awesome when you get to connect the two.
I love it I love all of it. You know, I could, if I had to pick and choose, I don't think I could. You know, because the road gets, you know, hard. It's like the travel is brutal, and it's just like, oh, I'm only playing for 90 minutes a day, and then I got 22 and a half hours to just sit around and do jack shit. And so then you're thinking about all the stuff that you should be doing at home, and then you get at home and you're like, man, I really want to get in front of people. So
You're
it's
tired
like,
from being on the road.
right, right.
I've always explained it as like being in the studio is like being under a microscope.
Yeah.
Because everything's so in detail, and playing a live show is like crash landing in an airplane.
Absolutely.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, you know,
It's a bad analogy for Skynyrd.
Oh, yeah.
Just-
He made the joke. He made the joke.
Well, start drinking. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm good.
No. That's
Yeah.
but that, you know, that I do dig what you're saying. But
There's your soundbite.
yeah. Bam. Instagram,
Gonna
TikTok.
just be canceled
YouTube
by all the
Shorts.
Skynyrd fans.
Try to cancel me. Yeah, but you know, this is what I want to ask you because now we're at the studio part. Are you producing a lot of records, or is it just you?
No, I'm producing all of my friends.
Because you did some Yellow Wolf stuff, right?
I've been doing a bunch of stuff with Wolf for
That's awesome.
God, since like 2015.
So he's an old buddy.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
No, like, well, so can you talk about him?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff
You're allowed to.
that's kind of not to be talked about yet,
Sure,
but
sure.
you'll know.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well,
Yeah.
good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, is it more just like, hey, you know, go work with Peter Keys, or are you kind of like, are you really trying to dive in the producer world? And like,
I mean, I've been in the producer world since like the early 80s.
Hell yeah.
You know, I just haven't had that big smash yet.
gotcha.
Yet.
Yeah, it's the cockroach effect, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, but this is the studio. This is like your first time. Like, this is my spot where
Yeah.
it's not just the basement.
Yeah.
Well, what do you call it? What's the name?
Stoner Creek Studio.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, my house is right on Stoner Creek. So I was like, it named itself.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what board do you got? I mean, he could talk this stuff all day.
I've got an API box too.
Cool.
You know,
Sick.
love it. You know, the Apollos, an 8 and a 16.
You combine API board with an Apollo, you got kind of every tool you need
Yeah,
right
and
there.
then, you know, I've got like a triple rack full of pre's and compressors and all that stuff. I mean, we could gear nerd out for
Oh yeah,
hours,
then
hours, you know.
we'll isolate just about 90% of the audience.
Yeah, right. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Go get a coffee.
How did you come to the engineering side of things? Was that just by necessity,
Yeah,
or
I mean, dude, I bought a Tascam 688 cassette, you know, 8
I love
track
those things.
back in, you know, 92.
Do you remember how much it was? How much?
$600.
yeah, which is for
Yeah.
Wow.
And I worked at Guitar Center for 3 weeks so that I could get an employee discount to buy that
Is that-
fucking thing, and then got fired.
Is that true?
Yeah,
That's fucking awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, the guy's like, dude, you can't work here. You're not a salesperson. You just play. I'd be talking people out of buying shitty gear the whole time, you know?
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
you shouldn't buy that.
Yeah, like, no, that's garbage. You don't want that. But I really needed that employee discount.
That's fucking
I have
dope.
the Porta Studio. I think it's a 414
Uh-huh.
Porta Studio.
Yeah.
Love that thing. During COVID, that was my favorite. I sat and I have a Mellotron, not like the tape,
Yeah, they got the 400D.
the tape Mellotron,
Yeah.
and which is I'm gonna get rid of it, but I feel so bad.
Wait, you have the tape Mellotron?
Yeah, the tape one. Yeah, it's the Mark.
Why are you going to get rid of it?
It's just like it doesn't get
Maintenance?
used as much. The maintenance is crazy.
Yeah.
It sounds awesome, and it's like I can get 98% of the way there with
Yeah.
just
The
about
plugins?
anything else, and then 2% rest of the way with a little bit of EQ.
What tape sets do you have?
I have the full string sets.
Uh-huh.
So it's like the full string and then the cello
Yeah.
and the viola, I believe,
Yeah.
on one.
You have
and
the
then I have
vibes?
and then I have the choir
Mm-hmm.
and the horns,
Yeah.
which are right next to each other. I can blend the
Yeah.
two of them, which is such a fun trick. The
Yeah.
choir and the horns.
Yeah.
And
You
then
got the verified.
yeah, and that's the most fun. You can't. That's the thing that's hard to simulate is the flipping the octave down on it, and then the very speed of tuning it.
Yeah.
And then the trick of like you're running out of tape,
Yeah.
so now I have to like shoot it up the octave and jump down on one.
Yeah. Oh, look, that's a lost art. Like the performance that you need to do on those things to make
Yeah.
them work right is it's next level. It's got nothing to do with playing piano.
Yep.
At all.
It's a sampler. It's
Yeah.
like the OG sampler. And I think that is the thing. If you've played on one before, then you know how to get the Mellotron sound, because I feel like people get the Mellotron sound wrong because they don't know the limitations of it. And they
Right.
just sit there and hold a pad for 20 seconds.
Well, yeah, it's like writing a horn part, not thinking that the guy has to breathe.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
It's like time out.
But I was just making Mellotron records on that 414 and just bouncing things down on the cassette tapes for all during COVID. It was a blast.
Right.
I was like, it's the best time of my life.
I wish I still had that 688, man. I had a lot of fun with it. I'd hear like a water heater going in the background, and I'd just go mic it.
Yeah.
And I'd let the tape run all the way through, and then I'd use that as like the background for something, and
That's
do like,
cool shit.
you know, just like, what is that sound? I'm like, oh yeah, that's my water heater. What?
Well, then there's the whole, like the Phil Spector, Beatlesy method of just like chopping the tapes up.
I never got into that because those little tiny tapes.
I
are
know,
just
yeah,
like,
they're
forget
tough.
about
They're
it.
tough.
Yeah.
But
That's dope, man. I was trying to keep up.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
well, Bruce Springsteen did Nebraska on a 414
Yeah.
to an extent. Then they went in and cut some.
The cool thing about the 688 is that it had MIDI.
Yeah.
Right. So you could actually stripe SMPTE, and I could trigger all of my sequencers with it.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. It was. I mean.
Well, you
I
know,
mean, MIDI was so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that it's still the go-to for almost all
you're talking about like MIDI for like a
Yeah.
keyboards.
yeah.
I mean, they got it
Musical
right.
interface. Wait, musical instrument device interface is what it stands for. In case anybody.
I bet no one knows that.
Fact check us.
Did you say is that MIDI?
Oh, you know what SMPTE stands for? Society
it's
of
like
Motion Pictures
yeah,
and
yeah,
Television
yeah.
Engineering,
Wait,
and I
so-
learned that from Frank Zappa.
Oh, there you go. What's Spacadian? What is it?
Soc-
Sorry.
Society of Motion Pictures and Television Engineering.
Wow.
I'd read that at one point. I know it's
Yeah.
time code for film, but
It's time
Yeah,
code.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, I mean, you know, in between the Skynyrd and now the producing, I mean, where do you see? I mean, when you and I sometimes talk, you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't know if Skynyrd's gonna keep touring, but it feels like they are. You know?
We're gonna go till the wheels fall off until
Sure.
people stop coming to the shows. The music's too good. The band is too good.
I feel like it's a cult in a good way.
Everybody loves it. Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's like, they
Yeah,
love
we're
that.
the Southern Grateful Dead.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
You know.
I mean, so, but, you know, in between that, I mean, are you really, you know, I mean, with this live record, it's just more like a passion project? Are you trying to get to some, I don't know. I'm just, you know, I love talking about music business, like music publishing. Are you trying to get more into more songwriting, or is this just for you?
It's for me. You know, I mean, I just want to write music that I like to listen to. Hopefully, somebody will dig it.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, that's that. I think it's got to be that pure. You know, I think anybody doing art for the sake of impressing people
Yeah,
is an immediate fail.
totally.
It's not it's not authentic.
Well, it's just kind of refreshing to hear that because, I mean, working, like, and that's how we met Artist Formula.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, God bless everyone I work with, but, you know, a lot of it sometimes is, you know, man, I'm just really trying to get the numbers up, and you know, this,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like a flash in the pan. I'm like, man, the days of, I mean, how many bands do you hear about anymore? You never hear about bands. It's all artists, you know,
Right.
And so it's
No,
kind of
the days of bands are dead. Like it's that shit's over.
gone.
You know.
You know, I mean, I get it. You start a band, you put out a record, band breaks up, so it's tough.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
But-
or you start a band and they fire you.
Yeah. So what band was that?
There's a band called Scrunt. I love you guys.
Scrunt.
Yeah.
Are they still playing?
Yeah. No.
No.
No. Actually, I don't think
ended
I don't
with
think I
it.
started that one, but you know,
You felt it.
yeah, I did.
Felt
I
it.
was all in.
Oh man, well, you know, I when I started, I was playing. You know, he was in a band too that had a lot of crash and
a
burn,
lot of them.
and that's why I started the artist thing, because I was like, well, at least I can own everything. It is a pain in the ass to always have to hire a band, but
Right.
then, you know, but then if
Not if
they,
they're good guys.
totally, but yeah, of course, of course, Ryan, I know. I'm like, here's your Venmo.
Yeah.
No, but
I'll
like
be in the car sleeping.
yeah, which that did happen.
Car.
He was just sick once. He's like,
Yeah.
I'll be in the
Yeah.
car. I was like, you better
Call
get
me
your-"
5 minutes before the gig. Give me a shot of whiskey and 2 Miller Lights.
I was like,
No
wake up,
more.
dude.
Yeah.
But I, like my LA band, this guy Magan, he plays with Matt Sorum, Billy Gibbons. He was the Cult,
Yeah.
and now he's oh my god, I'm just having a brain fart. Deep Purple, what's his name?
Yeah. What, the guitar player?
Yes, that's who
I
is
can
the
picture
band.
him.
No.
George something, or-
Steve Dixie Dregs, Steve Morse.
Steve Morse,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
let's see, I'll just look it up too. It's
That's
what
good.
it, he just came back from freaking Japan. But I'm just saying, I love you, Mike. You're the shit, and happy birthday. But you know, it's not cheap. You know, so being the artist, he's like, oh, this is my price. And I'm like, oh, but
Yeah.
you know, it's,
well,
so it's
I mean,
tough.
look, monetizing music and monetizing your skill set, it's a thing. You know,
Glenn Hughes. There you go.
and that's the thing about making records. Records aren't really even a commodity anymore. They're an advertisement for the brand. This is the brand,
Totally.
right? This is what you buy. This is what you get in the studio. You get me, and you get these. You know,
No, you're right. I mean, so like with that LA band, I finally got booked at the Troubadours like 2 years ago, and we did like 350 people. I couldn't believe I did that.
right?
But I totally lost $1,000 putting on that show. But my band was dope, and
Right.
then ever since, says, hey man, so it's the brand. You
Bro,
could, you
look.
could you could pay a cheap band and no one's gonna. Come
I
back.
did a show here in Nashville with my band called the All Time Low Stars, which I absolutely love. We played the best music. We start with Cheech and Chong and we end with Frank Zappa, and we put a bunch of shit in the middle.
That's dope.
And it's awesome. I only lost $700 at that gig,
And that's a win.
and that was a win.
I love how I only lost.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a catch-22. The whole
So-
the brand versus the music, because you kind of you need the money to make the record,
Right.
and you need the record to make the money, and
Oh yeah, I mean,
Right.
music is the music business is a catch-22, you know. And it for me again, back to the studio. The reason I built the studio is that I'm getting into like film scoring, sync licensing, other ways to monetize
Good for you.
the skill set. And you know, I figured, well, if I have all of the things that I need to do the stuff that I want to do, that is a viable product, right?
I need to connect you with, and I don't want to get too off, but my guys, it's called Sync Money.
Yeah.
I just connected with them not too long ago. They got amazing sync briefs. It's non-exclusive.
Yeah.
I send them every day. You know,
Right.
and all you gotta do is go check these out.
Right.
I'll
So you
connect
get
to
the
them.
music supervisors like right
But it's
there.
every day they send it,
Yeah.
and there's no fees. It's just, hey man, this is it. Do you
Yeah.
got anything? I'll connect it to them. They're killing it. So,
Yeah, and another thing that I really found that I enjoy is like scoring to picture.
yeah,
Like there are no rules.
totally.
Like there's no like, oh, we're in 4/4 or we're in A. No, we're like in any key you want, and you just like, you know, go crazy with sounds and with, you know, modes and with, you know, just any, it's wide open. It's like, how do you create an emotion or how do you back up an emotion or, you know, dip out for like some, for some text or whatever. It's, yeah.
Well, and actually, this is just me. I've never thought of this. Scoring to a film.
Yeah.
What's the process? Are they giving you the film and you're like, all right, here's the section, or it's like, hey, this is what we want. Then you see
No,
the
they
film.
they give you like a cue sheet, and it's like, okay, here we want to, you know, a scary thing happens, or here this is a
But
funny
do
thing.
you get to see the movie as well?
Yeah, and it's like
That's-
at this
that's awesome.
time point, you know, you've got 4 seconds to make this emotion, and then you've got 8 seconds to make this next transition or whatever. So it's, you know,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's a whole different way to kind of use sound and you know, we're painting with sound, really.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
have you? I mean, I don't know the last time you watched a movie without a soundtrack. It is so eerie.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I mean, a good soundtrack and a good score can save a horrible movie.
I completely agree.
And a shitty one can kind of destroy a really good one too.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Totally.
you know,
Totally.
Well, I know I was watching this thing with Hans Zimmer talking about his
Yeah.
Well, and his process is so different than everyone else's process.
it's 3,000, you know,
Yeah.
input, template.
Yeah. And he now has the luxury of like we're going to get Hans Zimmer, and he'll start composing before they even start filming the movie. So they'll like even keep in mind his ideas, his musical
his
ideas.
styles, yeah.
The Dune stuff, he was coming up with new instruments to
Oh,
do.
cool.
And so, you know, Denny Villeneuve was he was taking that into account while directing, where it's like now the music's dictating
Right.
the picture, which is such a cool concept.
But you know, that's another good point. There's not a lot of good movies these days. Like, I mean, the only movies I watch are from like 2008. It's like old school Wedding Crashers, like Will Ferrell stuff.
Right.
There's definitely not good comedy. Well, there's some good. I don't want to.
Well, I mean, I'll take that back. There are great movies coming out. I guess I'm going straight to comedy.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But
Comedy kind of got locked up. At least Hollywood
totally.
comedy.
Well, is
Stand-up's
the
still
writer's
left.
strike still going on?
I mean, it never really. I mean, it's kind of done, but you know, they didn't really fix anything. You know, I had so many friends. I moved back because I got signed by an awesome agent, and then this sells more here.
Right.
Tequila's big on the West Coast.
Yeah.
But when I moved here, I had a lot of friends, like not just actors, like managers and like the business side of acting, and they're like, "I'm coming, dude." And so, you know, and I think it's, you know, people are just kind of tired of lots of California's whole thing, income tax, whatever. But when they came here, they're like, "Yeah, dude, it's still going on," you know. So
Yeah.
I think
the writer's strike is still going
Yeah,
on.
I think it's all screwed up.
Well, then that would make sense that there are no good movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody's writing them.
Yeah, no, that's true. And AI's taken over.
Oh, fun for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
don't even get me started there. Holy.
I mean, I'll tell you this. I was like, oh, no way. But then I've used it.
Yeah.
On things.
I'll be honest. I used it to write my business plan for the studio.
Really?
And it was great. And then I was like, okay, incorporate
What, Chat GPT or you went
Chat
further?
GPT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't
And
it
I was
kinda
like,
wild?
all right, I want you to incorporate these, these ideas and these things into the business plan. And it just kicked it out. I was like, oh my God, now I got to edit all this shit.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, for this, there's an AI program, Opus Clips.
Right.
You see the ones on Instagram? Where it's
Like
like,
do the caption.
it just looks insane and it has all these, they'll put like
Yeah.
an image in there.
Yeah.
That's an AI program.
Right.
It literally spits it out in 20 minutes.
I think it's a brilliant thing, and I'm not afraid of it. I also think it gets, abused. And
Sure.
I've been to more than one writing session where somebody's like, yeah, hold on. And my dog killed the fish. It's perfect, right? I was like, where did that come from?
Where's the tractor?
And they're like literally like,
their
calling
phone
up
in their
AI for lyrics. I'm like, that's just kind of
Bogus.
bullshit.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, just for fun. So, do you have any? Well, yeah. What would be funnier, a crazy studio story or a crazy road story?
The road ones might have to stay a little. I guess they're both very personal. I always love that I as the engineer and the producer, you have so much shit on everyone because like they forget the mic's still live.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, I have so much stuff to cancel. Everyone's great, but
Any of the stories that I have, I can't share with you,
Totally.
but they're great.
I mean, what's okay? Well, then, but between the both, have you had obviously more crazy times on the road than the studio? I'm assuming.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just wild shit.
Especially back in the day, I mean, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and man, it's a good thing.
Well, God bless. It's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, getting arrested at the border, coming back from a gig while I was out on work release from jail already. That's a good one, Like I'm coming through from Canada and they're like, Mr. Pizarro's, you're going to have to sit over here. And they chain me to the bench. I'm like, fuck, I got to be back in jail at midnight and it's 11:15 and they're holding me here.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was awesome. I made it back, but that's.
I feel like every great tour story has to deal with the Canadian border.
I was about to beat you there. I hear it's crazy going back over there.
Don't go if you have any kind of
Priors or anything?
Yeah, like I had a lot of DUIs, and they were like, "Man, you are not
they'll-
allowed in our
Because
country."
they'll look it up.
Yeah,
They'll be like, hey, we saw this 10 years ago. You can't
Oh, yeah.
come in. Yeah.
and the thing is, every time you cross the border, you have to go to the customs agent, who is the judge, the jury, and the jailer.
Wow.
And they pull up your whole file, and my file is thick. And so I say I'm forever humbled by my past.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, I'm in recovery. I've been sober for 22 years, Mike.
Good for you.
They're like,
Congratulations.
you have they say I have a rehabilitated status. So I went from like a habitual offender to a rehabilitated guy.
So you can go Canada, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Canada.
Go Canada.
Oh, that's funny.
Except for maybe until after this, we'll see.
What,
Yeah.
How do you say the cops? Constable?
Constant.
Right? Is that
We got
Yeah.
constables in
Yeah.
Texas growing up.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's funny. Yeah, my dad was Border Patrol, so yeah, he had the hat, the gun.
Other border though, right?
Yeah, at the Rio Grande.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. Well, let me ask you this, just because we're in Nashville. What? I mean, there's a lot of freaking 12th and Porter's gone, but what's your favorite venue in town?
Oh man.
Just like a rock club, not like the Bridgestone or something, unless it is the Bridgestone.
No, definitely the Bridgestone sounds fucking terrible.
It's quiet in there now.
It's not. Any arena, any big venue like that, it's just gonna
Sound.
I
it's
just
gonna sound
maybe
shitty.
it's my hearing's gotten worse. But I remember going to
No.
see shows there in 2014.
Like shows or the
and
Predators.
then
or-
I saw Sturgill play last week,
Yeah.
and I was like, can they not turn this up?
Oh,
And
interesting.
but maybe you're maybe onto something. That probably might be my hearing.
Well, I mean, think about it. They're built for like basketball
Yeah.
games,
Sure.
or it's hockey games,
yeah.
right? It's not built for like acoustics.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ryman is for sure one of my favorite venues here in town. It's just because of the history and
Yeah, the church. It's like
when
the church.
we played there a couple times, and every time it's been just like this kind of spiritual experience, man, where you can feel the music coming out of the walls, and you can feel all of the
History.
performances that have gone on there. It's got soul, right?
Yeah.
I don't know another venue I mean, the Underdog is a really cool little place. That's
It
where
is.
I only lost $700.
Yep.
you know,
Oh, from earlier.
playing the gig.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, that's
Good
a
for Cal.
it's a great little dive bar, you know, and they have great music in there.
They do,
So
they do.
it's, you know,
I
but
like
I
that
don't,
stage outside.
yeah, I don't go out much, you know. It's like I really don't go to see shows.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess between doing the Skinner stuff, I mean, are you doing any shows? Is that, or you just want to put out records and I'm not going to do a Peter Key show?
No, I will do some shows.
Because I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to do some more All Time Low Stars stuff, and that's, you know, just because I love the material that we play and the people that I get to play with.
Sure.
You know, it's a lot of fun. And
Who are you playing with here? If it was like your thing.
it depends, man. It's different kind of every time. It depends on who's in town, who
Who's
wants
available.
to do the gig. You know,
Sure.
It's like, but you know, I'll bring in any one of a bunch of people that you probably know. You know, so it's a rotating cast of characters. You know?
Sure.
It's kind of like.
Kind of makes it fun, right?
It's
Everything's a little
super
different.
fun. It's like Funkadelic meets Frank Zappa and the Beatles and the Stones and just all of that good stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I like your playing. It's not just like a piano. It's like percussive,
Right.
you know?
Piano's a percussion
Well,
instrument.
I know that.
I'm a concussionist.
no, but I'm just saying, fuck off. Get out of here. No. That was great, though. Hey, is it a stringed instrument? No, but I'm just saying the way you play, it's just like it's got a lot of rhythm to it, you know?
Yeah, that's how I feel it, you know? It's like I've never like kind of pussyfooted around it. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
totally.
get in the song.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, I mean, dude, thanks for coming. I mean, you got anything else for him? You got
I got a bunch of questions.
Yeah, go for it, man. Yeah.
What is your least favorite thing about being in the music industry? Or something that's giving you the most difficulty?
I mean, the most difficult part of it is the instability, right? It's the double-edged sword, right? Like we have all this freedom for creativity, but we're unemployed after every gig,
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So there's that duality of like, okay, how do I balance that? You know, but that's also my favorite part of it, right? It's like it takes a lot of faith and a lot of drive and a lot, you know, it's like you just have to want this. Like that's the only way to do it.
It's kind of entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I mean, there's no backup plan,
Yeah.
right? It's like you're either all in or you're not.
100%.
You know, so that's the other thing. That's the love-hate relationship with.
Well, and there's someone else that is 100% in. If you're only 90% of the way in,
Yeah.
there's someone else that's going to come take your gig.
absolutely.
Yeah, I call it pure math. It's, the people are like, well, this is really hard. It's like, well, there's someone else that's, if you're doing 30 hours a week, someone's doing 50.
Right.
And just by pure math in 1 year, they'll be that much further, you know? I don't know, man. I don't have a job. I do have a job, you know what I mean? But I just can't stand when people are like, this is hard. I'm like, yeah, no shit, dude.
It's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
man.
But then you will be so stoked when you're like I was there 2 years ago as a bartender, and now I'm fucking, you know what I mean? I think that's the cool thing.
It's hard, but it's rewarding, right? If you just power through those difficult times, man, that's the other thing is I just find that, you know, I want to give up. That's the moment where you're about to break through.
Well, then let me ask you that. So, I mean, I'm sure there was a couple, but I mean, was there really a breaking point where you're like, man, I might need to go get a job?
Yeah. Like when I moved down to Nashville, I was literally like, I think I need to go work at Taco Bell before I moved to Nashville. I spent my
just to save us some cash.
I spent my rent money to take the flight down here to audition for the band that I was in before Skynyrd.
Wow.
I was like, fuck it, I'm going. And it's either that or I go to work at Taco Bell so I can pay my child support.
Have you ever told that story before?
I don't know, maybe.
Well, that's pretty. I mean, that's just badass to hear the guy from Skinner's like, I spent all my last to. You know what I mean? Most people just don't know that. They see a successful dude, and it's such an iconic band. He's got it set. He's fine. You know what I mean? That's what most people who are not.
Dude, getting there was not easy, man.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, up in Detroit, with a couple partners, we bought a church. We turned it into a studio, and that was like around 2005 or 6 or 7. And then the economy crashed, and I couldn't make $100, and I had a full studio. You know, so I was like, shit, I got to actually make some money, man. It was like a struggle for me to make $100-$200 a week. Man. And that was what my child support was. So I was like, this has got to stop, man. So I was literally looking at jobs. I'm like, fuck, man, I've been playing music my whole life. I'm not qualified for any of this shit, you know?
Yeah. They'd be like,
The
get out of here.
gaps in my resume. Oof.
Yeah.
So again, you know,
LinkedIn.
so I saw an ad in Craigslist that said touring keyboard player needed, salary, and you know, bus. And I was like, all right. And I went and I auditioned for this band. I'm not going to tell you who it was because they were fucking horrible band, horrible artist.
Were they a known band?
No, not
Okay.
at all. But I still don't want to say the name.
Sure.
And that paid for me to come to Nashville. You know, I went and I got the gig, and they put me on salary. I was like, cool. So I moved down to Nashville, and then I got the call for Skynyrd 3 months later. So it was just
That
like,
quick.
yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
everybody's like, dude, Nashville's a 6-year town. I was like, I'm down. I'll wait 6 years to get that gig. And I had the gig of a lifetime in like 4 months.
So you seen that ad in that paper and taking that gig.
Yeah.
Do you think that really ultimate led to the Skynyrd because you were in town?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, no question. And
That's fucking awesome.
that's nothing I could have planned,
Wow.
right? That was for sure a higher power working
Absolutely.
in my life, right?
Absolutely.
Like, no kidding.
I'm sure that just you had this huge like got it's like when you get in the car and you're like you know, like that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's a killer story.
And I feel like the music business, something I try and tell people is it's an industry of rejection. Like
Right.
you're going to get thousands and thousands of no's, but all it does is take one yes
Right.
to
Yeah.
change everything. So if you're not willing to face the possibility of rejection, like you know, come moving down here with kind of no plan,
Yeah,
then it's hard to get that yes.
It could be A through Z and it was, you know, M.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just never know.
Or it could be B.
Yeah. It could you never know what it's gonna be.
There's definitely an element of luck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know,
Sure.
to get to where I am took a lot of hard work. And yes, I did make my luck, but there was also some, you know, things that I have no idea how they happened. Like, you know, miraculous shit.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what do you got coming up? Like, what's like something that you're stoked about? Obviously, your record.
Yeah, the record, the studio, I've got a couple new projects that I'm working on that I'm super excited about. A couple of new artists, working with some old friends that, you know, we kind of fell out around COVID that we've reconnected. Yellow Wolf's new record. God, just so much stuff. It's a lot. I mean, my new record, obviously, I'm really excited for. You know, it's
What's it called?
I'm
Do you
excited
got a
for
name?
it does. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I mean, I think
Is it gonna be 26 tracks? You could do like a double thing?
26 or 30.
What's the last time you heard of it? That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm just gonna do the
Do
whole
it.
thing. Yeah,
That's killer.
yeah. I mean, I was gonna call it Overqualified,
I like that.
which is one of the songs.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, that's awesome.
yeah.
Want me to, you know, you got anything else?
Yeah, I have one fun closing question.
Yeah.
Now that mowing season is over, what are you gonna do with all that time?
Fire pit.
Oh,
There we go.
Nice.
There we go.
Now we burn it.
Well, yeah, one leads to the other.
That's killer, man.
There's an album name.
Well, dude, plug anything you got.
Yeah, hey man, just check out peterkeys.com. Obviously, check out Lynyrd Skynyrd. You know, my studio is called Stoner Creek, so Stoner Creek Studio on Instagram. Hit that up too. Hit me up. Yeah,
Well, thanks for coming. We'll be tagging you. I'm gonna give you
Great.
tons of clips. So,
thank you,
love
man.
you, dude. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Pleasure. All.
Great meeting you, man.
Boom. Thank you, Taylor. Well, thanks,
say
man.
so much
All right.
That was dope.
That was great, man.
Did that work out?
Yeah,
That was dope.
That was wonderful being able to hear.